what in the 20s is going
in the
on?
20s,
Think about
yeah.
the 20s.
What
baby.
Plenty.
What in the 20s is
I
going
am
on?
here for my 20s, baby.
This is the 20s.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Zamam Kize, and this is What's in the 20s, a podcast where you listen to me grow through it, baby. On this episode, we're going to be speaking about, I guess, just the process of letting go. I was busy, I guess, scrolling, as everybody does, online, and there was this post that came across about someone just basically expressing that they went through months and months and months praying to God that he would heal her heart in terms of like letting someone go. And there were so many people in the comments who could like essentially just relate to that feeling. And I think very often we just speak about telling someone like, hey, just let this person go, or just let this thing go, or, just like move on and all the rest. But I don't think we really go into what that looks like, what that feels like, I think sometimes we feel like we're going crazy, when it's like months later and we're still like attached to this feeling, attached to this person, attached to this circumstance and all the rest. And it's like, how do you move forward or on from something, And I think the first thing I'm going to say is that it is repetitive. And by repetitive, I mean that it happens every single time you remember them. Every single time you are triggered by something that they used to do, used to eat, songs they used to listen to, all the rest, it's so repetitive, that constant reminder that you need to let them go. It's not like this one day thing, where you've made a decision and then it happens. It's like, it's so continuous. It is a journey. And it's like that thing that I spoke about before when it comes to forgiveness. Every time you remember, you need to forgive again. Every time you remember the person, you need to remind yourself again that you're in a process of grieving them and letting them go. And like I said, it is triggering, the process of letting someone go, because it's in everything. It's in anything and everything, whether you're grieving the loss of someone, a loss of a relationship, a loss of a dream, a loss of a business, a company. Like, there's going to be all these reminders that come at you, right? That come at your mind, at your brain, and you're actively having to work at not responding to it. You're actively having to work at not being affected by it, which is such a difficult thing to do, right? It's like you don't just switch off your emotions, you don't just switch off your thoughts. You're a human being, of course. Like, there's this like a visceral kind of feeling or response or whatever that like something may trigger inside of you. And I think that the process of letting someone go, man, I think it gets worse before it gets better, right? The beginning stages, it's like I said, it's exhausting because you're constantly having to work at not responding to the triggers, constantly having to work at not letting it play into you, not letting it consume you, not letting it control you. It is uncomfortable. Letting someone go, I mean, you're so used to having them around. You're so used to speaking to them. They've become a part of your routine. They've become a part of the way you do things, see things, talk about things, you know what I'm saying? And now you have to get used to life outside of them. You have to get used to getting things done outside of contacting that person, right? And it is so uncomfortable to do because you're switching a routine, so chemically something has to happen to you mentally, and it's like changing the way that, what is like, I guess, automatic to you. It feels like impulse to do a certain thing. It feels like it's just a knee-jerk reaction, when you're so used to having someone around or access to someone, should I say. And now that pain of, as much as you want to do it, and now you have to work so hard to resist that, right? You have to work so hard, and like that's what I'm saying, it gets so uncomfortable because it feels so unnatural, right? It feels so unnatural to not do the things that you were so used to doing, to not being able to live out this dream you thought you were going to live, right? It's so uncomfortable to let that go. And I think that's where a lot of that heartbreak sits, a lot of that disappointment sits, and all of that. It's like everything, everything attached to that thing you wanted basically dies off and includes that version of you were when you had that dream, when you were with that person, when you were in that relationship, when you were at that event or environment, right? It's not just them that we're letting go of. It's all the future plans we had. It's all the versions of yourself you saw being with that person or in that environment or a part of that dream, a part of that journey you thought you were going to take. It's these versions of you that you're understanding now can no longer exist anymore. And that's what I'm saying. So many different things are happening in the process of letting go, because it's like, okay, you're stopping yourself from what you're automatically used to in terms of being with that person or that thing, but it's also stopping yourself from being the person you used to being. You know, it's like, it's a lot of griefs, it's a lot of loss going on, and there's of course there's pain attached to that, you know, because when you dreamed those things and wished for those things and set out on those courses and journeys and all the rest, you did it with so much ambition and hope and aspiration, right? You didn't set out for it with like this knowing thing that it wasn't going to work out. And so when it doesn't come to fruition, it makes you feel like a failure. It makes you feel inadequate. It makes you feel less than. It makes you feel like you're just not good enough to fulfill that promise. You're not good enough for that person. You're not good enough for that job. You're not good enough for that environment. You're not good enough for that dream. You're not good enough to, I don't know, keep a marriage, keep a this, keep a that. You know, it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not it, you know, and that's painful because that's like you start to look at yourself and think, what's wrong with me? You know, like what is it that I don't have, that I lack, you know, that doesn't make me the person to see this through? And I think, honestly speaking, when it comes to letting go, the biggest part of it, at least for me, is about reaching for something else in its place, right? So when you are triggered by something, when you are used to, waking up and contacting this person and all the rest, when I say it's about reaching for something else in its place, instead of just going to that response of waking up and feeling like, oh my gosh, okay, now I need to text this person that like I don't have access to anymore, like what do? You find something else to do with that time slot in the morning. You know, you find something else to replace what used to take up that space, right? And it's such a it's a thing that you have to work at constantly. Like I said, it's a repetition, a repetitive thing, you know, because now you're having to build a new habit. You're having to rewire things in neurological pathways in your brain as to how to reach for other things in its place, how to fill up that gap that you feel, that hollowness, that hole, you know, reach for a different person to talk to. I would tell my friends, every time you're thinking of calling that person, every time you're thinking about reaching out and breaking no contact, call me. That's what I say every single time. Every time you think you're just about to risk it all, call me in its place. You know, even switch the names and the numbers so that, you know, every time you think it's about to happen, make me the person that you contact, you know. Let me stand in that place. Let me try my best to fill that gap, even though I know I won't ever like fully fill that gap of what another person was. It's not that. It's just like we need to start helping each other out, you know, because if we don't give people the options to reach for other things, they're going to fall back to their old patterns and habits and all the rest. And it's like, I think that if you're so used to picking up that pain, that thing or whatever it is, figure out a way to take something else in its place, right? Figure out a new thing to think about once that thought comes in, that thought bubble comes in, that triggers you and all of the rest. Counter it with another thought, you know, with a different thought about something else, or do an activity. You know, every time that thought comes in, you say, okay, I'm going to do a push-up or something like that, or I'm going to go take a walk, or I'm going to, you know what I'm saying? So that you're filling that time up, you're filling that gap up with something else, you know, because the longer you sit and ruminate in it, the more it festers until you're just stuck in this heartbreak, until you're stuck in this grief, until it inhibits you and keeps you trapped in that feeling. Whereas like emotions, right, it's energy in motion, and we should be allowing that that emotion to flow past you and through you instead of retaining it. And I think how that happens is to keep being in motion, is to keep moving and reaching for other things in its place. And I think that when I say you got to do it over and over and over again, it's about resetting your factory settings, right? So that eventually at a point it stops being something that you're used to doing. It becomes something that was, in your past that you don't do anymore, because you do something else now, because you're so consumed and busy with doing other things. I think that you need to learn how to remove triggers. And this is a tough one, right? Because of all the attachment we have to the memories, to all the work we put in investments and all of that. And by removing triggers, it can be as simple as, say, it's like a bad relationship that ended. I believe it's important to remove the things that set you backwards. So if it's like looking at pictures and videos and all of that kind of stuff that just set you back, get them off your phone. If it's deleting that contact number, delete it. If it means blocking someone from constantly contacting you and having access to you, those are the things you need to do. And I get that it's hard to do because it's like, it's so painful. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's still that thing that we hold. It's like, what? Are you sure? Like, no, but look at all of this that we've gone through and that, and all of that kind of stuff, all the excuses we make to keep the presence of somebody else alive. I mean, if it doesn't trigger you and affect you negatively, then I guess you don't have to. But I'm talking about situations where that having this type of access is honestly inhibiting your growth and your peace. It's interfering with your peace. And it's like you have to make those, even if it means muting their stories so you don't have to keep updated on what's going on in their life. I think it's so strange when you're constantly seeing what they're doing, who they're hanging with, what they're eating, all of that kind of stuff. It just keeps setting like alarms in your head, you know what I'm saying? And I think it keeps you engaged for longer than you need to be. If it means telling people around you to stop having conversations with you about that situation or that person or whatever, because sometimes people will just give you updates unprovoked, against your own will, and you're just like, release me. I don't need to know. It's okay to put that boundary up. And that's what I mean by removing triggers. It even could mean muting, seeing what their friends are posting and stuff, because if you watch what their friends post, you're going to see that person. It could set you all the way back again, and it's just like you need to be so far removed, because what I'm trying to get you to do is kind of grieve that person out of your system, right? Out of your mind. And it's difficult to do if you're constantly in conversation with that, if you're constantly engaging with that, if you're constantly allowing that into your orbit, into your headspace, into your conversations, your thoughts, your this and that. You know what I'm saying? It's like it kind of needs to phase out. And it can't phase out if it's at the forefront of everything you do and are. And, like when you go on your phone is like your little private space. It's, it's you and your phone. And now they're there, in your like quiet time, in your private time, you just, and now you're just moody all day because you saw something you wish you didn't and all the rest. And I think that if there are ways of limiting triggers, do that. If you know that they frequent a certain space, stop going to that space if you know it's going to set you back. Find another space to go to. And that's what I mean about reaching for other things in its place. It's like these, if you know that it's going to have a damaging effect on you, limit as much access as possible to those things, to those environments, to those people and stuff like that. Because I know we always try to think, but like, I don't want to now burn bridges and all of that kind of stuff. But it's like, what's the point if your mental health is suffering? What's the point if you're the one going through the most? What's the point if you're the one going crazy and you're getting the short end of the stick, essentially? Like they get to maintain all these relationships with you and enjoy the experience of you whilst you're constantly crying, dying inside, going through the most, calling your friends, being frustrated, don't know how to get over this pain that you're in. It's like, I think it really is a matter of putting up walls and boundaries and saying like, I don't need to do this, because you know how they say, like, where your attention goes, energy flows, right? And so if your attention is constantly on this thing, you're constantly giving energy to it. You're constantly growing it, which is making the detachment a lot more difficult for you. In fact, it is breaking your heart, and it feels like it's taking forever to get over a situation and get over someone because you're constantly just battling these triggers. If it means getting rid of things that it could honestly mean even deleting songs, that remind you of that situation, whatever. Delete those songs, because next thing one day you're playing shuffle on your music, and then after like having a great bop, another song comes on and it's that song that triggers you. Now your mood just dips insanely, and it's just like learning how to remove as many triggers as possible, remove distractions, remove anything that will hinder you from where you're trying to be, because it's not worth it. And I get it, because we have an attachment to the memories, we have attachment to the person, we have attachment to the dream, the goal, the job, the environment, the whatever, and it feels very harsh. It feels very like, oh my gosh, are we really just going to cut this all off and stuff like that? I'm telling you, yes. And when it comes to your mental and emotional health, yes. I think that we play too much about it. We kind of say, I don't mind compromising on it as long as I can maintain certain relationships and whatever. It's not worth it. It's not worth losing yourself to keep someone else. I promise you, things get so much better the more you get comfortable with choosing you. In the beginning, it's very uncomfortable because of like, you're just not used to it and all the vibes. But the more you engage in that practice of like actually saying, I'm not happy here, I'm not going to participate in this, I'm not going to choose this, I think the better it becomes for you, Also, if they're on your mind all day, then you have too much time, way too much time, too much free time, honestly. And I would honestly suggest that you need to get busy. You need to occupy yourself with other things, with more things. You need more life experiences outside of this person, or this thing that you're grieving and stuff like that. It's because you attach everything that you used to do with that person or that thing or whatever it is, that you don't know how to do anything else. Everything that you do is just going to keep thinking, oh, I wish this person was here. Oh, I wonder what they're doing. Oh, I wonder if only. It's like you need to go live a little more life. You need to go do a lot more, a lot more, and continuously so. It's not easy in the beginning. You're always going to keep wondering, about them. Of course you are, and you should give yourself grace for when those moments come up. There's nothing wrong with that, Don't think, oh, why am I thinking about this person? Why am I, like, it's okay. Give yourself grace, because I think the more angry you get with yourself about it, the longer it takes for that emotion to pass through. When they say like, this too shall pass, it's not passing because now you're too busy being angry and resentful and frustrated all over again, instead of forgiving and letting that thing just leave you, letting that thing just move past you, and like I guess recover from that and heal from that. And I think when you give yourself grace, it's a lot easier to exhale. Like, don't hate yourself for missing someone, don't hate yourself for missing something, for missing a dream, for missing, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not the point of it. I think it's more like understanding that there will be moments when you do, but it's also okay to tell yourself, just because I miss it doesn't mean I want it back. Just because I'm thinking about this person, this thing or whatever, it doesn't mean I deserve that situation, doesn't mean I deserve that relationship, doesn't mean I deserve to go through that. It's okay. I think both can exist. And I think that when you just learn to enjoy life and do a lot more life with other things, other people, other activities, it gives yourself a fighting chance to dream again. It gives yourself a fighting chance to be ambitious about something again. I actually saw this video about this woman speaking about how for all her life she has spent her birthday with a partner. You know, some partners who she thought she was going to get engaged to, partners who, you know, she was truly convinced was the love of her lives, all of that kind of stuff. And now going into 26, this is the first birthday she's having where she's alone, you know, and she's talking about how she has spent this time doing everything she wasn't able to do when she was, you know, caught up in a relationship and stuff. And I never thought of things like that there's this whole version of us that exists that we never get to explore because we're too busy investing in somebody else. We're too busy growing a dream alongside someone else and like trying to be the version of ourselves that is best suited for our partners, for this and that. You know, I think sometimes we get lost in it. And not that I don't think having a partner is a bad thing. Please don't mistake me. But what I'm saying is that like there's so much, you know, there's other versions of us that we don't really get to fully see the extent of, you know, when we are so busy considering another person. You know, when we're so busy building a life around someone else. And I think that there's a lot of dreams that we compromise on. There's a lot of interests and hobbies and passions that we put at the back seat because we're too busy trying to make space for two people, you know, and it doesn't even necessarily even mean a romantic partner. It could be a family member or a business venture or something that's taking up so much of your time that you're unable to explore other parts of yourself, that you're unable to really invest in other parts of yourself, enjoy other parts of yourself. And I think that it just made me think, like, are there things that I'm not really taking advantage of, you know, that I could be, you know, that I, you know, in this time of like, you know, my 20s and all the rest, that I could really just be fully just I guess immersing myself in that experience because I'm, you know, so caught up in something else or someone else or whatever it is. And yeah, I think it's just use this time of letting go to come back to you. Use it as a roadmap to finding you or rebuilding you. And I think that we need to let go of hope. And let me explain what I mean by that. I think sometimes when something ends, we try to keep parts of them with us, right? We say if a relationship ends, we say, I hope we can still be friends. And then we keep them as friends in our lives and stuff like that. And I don't understand why you would choose that. I mean, I do understand it, but I mean, it's counterproductive because what you're doing is you're lingering, you're leaving hope to linger that, you know, eventually at some point you're hoping that they'll change their mind. You're hoping that it will somehow just mean because we're in each other's lives, we'll come back to each other. You're hoping that it won't affect you to see them with someone else, whatever. Like, I think it doesn't make sense. I think we need to nip that in the butt, you know, because when you just keep them around and stuff, it's affecting you. You're the one going through it whilst they're so comfortable with just being your friend and they get confused. You know what I'm saying? When you start reacting to certain things that they may do or say and all the rest. And it's like, it's because of the hope that you keep in your mind that like one day things will be different. Things are not going to be different. It's not going to be different. And why would you want to make it work with someone who wasn't sure about you? You know? Why do you want that person back in your life anyways? Why are you working so hard to convince someone that it's you they should be with? Why are you working so hard? Like, I don't think it should be that way because at the end of it, it's going to be unsatisfying and unfulfilling, you know, because you're going to realize that when they were done playing around, when they were done exploring all their options, doing everything, then they decide, okay, actually, I want to come back to you. You're not going to enjoy that because you worked so hard waiting for them. And that's how I might get rid of that hope, let it die, believe things for what they are, believe people for who they tell you they are, believe situations, believe reality, and choose that, you know, instead of for what you want it to be and what you're hoping for it to be. And I think it'll help you with that process of letting go, you know, just telling yourself, let go of that hope, you know, and move forward, move towards what chooses you. And I think there's a lot more peace and fulfillment in those spaces than waiting and hoping that someone who has told you that they don't want to be here, you know, will somehow come around. And yeah, that's really what I wanted to speak about today, essentially, is This process of letting go, it's tough, it's long, it's repetitive, but it is effective when we are intentional about how we want to spend it. It is effective when we put up boundaries. It is effective when we start saying no to things and start saying yes to us, And I hope that in your grief, you find the peace you so deserve. I hope that in your grief, you find that calm that you deserve, that you find joy in living life again, that you find excitement in the world that we live in. As always, I'm sending my love. Goodbye.
What in the 20s is going
In the
on?
20s,
Think about
yes.
the 20s.
What
baby.
Plenty, plenty.
What in the 20s is
I
going
am
on?
here for my 20s, baby.
This is the 20s.